to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. Do you wonder how your faith fits together with your profession? Well, join us as we explore how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Well, hello there. Welcome to Two Roads Crossing. My name is Barry Schwank. I'm a pastor, a veterinarian, and your host as we explore the intersection of faith and veterinary medicine. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Hope this podcast is a benefit to you. If this is not your first time, not your first rodeo, I appreciate you coming back. It's good to see you again. Hopefully, these podcasts have been a real benefit to you. As always, if there's a topic or a subject that you would like us to address, something that you've been wondering about, something that might be helpful in your life, you can email me at podcast@cvm.org, and we would love to help you out in any way that we possibly can. Much like life, veterinary medicine is meant to be a team sport. And what I wanted to do today is talk a little bit about the pitfalls of isolation within faith and our profession, and also talk about the benefits of healthy communities and being intentional about that. And so I'm really happy to have Dr. Paige Wages with us here today, because she spent a good portion of her life working on and with and building healthy teams and healthy communities. She's currently the lead veterinarian at Care First Animal Hospital in Raleigh, North Carolina, where she leads a wonderful professional team there. She has an enthusiastic group of vet students at North Carolina State University, where she is the faculty advisor for the Christian Veterinary Fellowship Group. She's currently serving as the past president of the CVM Board of Directors. And for the last 22 years, she's been leading teams to work alongside some pretty awesome native communities in North Carolina, Arizona, and even Alaska. So, Paige, with all of your spare time, I appreciate you. I appreciate you talking with me today. Hope everything's good.
It's all good. Yeah, we're
Good.
excited to be here.
I didn't even mention the funny farm. You have is it nearly 100 rescue animals now on your farm?
Yes. We try not to go. It seems to be once we get up to 100, people die. So we try to stay right under.
That's a good way of doing it. And if you are just listening to the stream, that's wonderful. But if you get a chance to peek in, I'm sure that there will be some familiar faces popping up on the screen with Paige. I was going to ask you which is harder to lead, the funny farm or the CVM board of directors, but I thought we might get into.
We're not going there.
That's a different skill set. No, I really appreciate you taking time to talk to me, because one of the things that I've really appreciated about you is just the intentionality that you have in building community, and how focused you are on making connections and the impact that you have on making these teams and communities. And so I want to talk to you a little bit. I guess maybe first of all, why has that been such a big part of your role as a veterinarian and in your faith walk, and what are some of the benefits that you see as that come about through having healthy communities and teams?
So that's a loaded question there, Barry.
Of course. We start off really big here.
That was really big. So, but they're all, you would think they'd all be different. So different roles that we play. So as a veterinarian, I have a team at work, right? And then you have the teams. I lead trips with the, short-term trips with the students, and building different teams for that. That's a little different. And then working with the students at the vet school, it's a different kind of team building experience. And I think it kind of depends on, where you are. But the important part is being a part of a team and being a part of a community. And like I said, each one of those is different. So if you think about so I'm at a small animal clinic. So where I work, which, you can be a large animal vet, small animal vet, not actually practicing, but each place you still have people that you work with, right? And so when you're trying to build those teams or community where you are, is really important that you have that you do that. So, for us to be able to serve our clients the best that we can, we have to be gracious to each other first and be able to, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's like, it's really important that we are a healthy, functioning team before we even try and do what we do for a living. So I think, that's kind of important. And so we spend at my, practice, we spend a lot of time on, team building. We have staff training every week for an hour every week. And just some of that, half of it is usually, team building exercises or, that kind of thing. And then working with the doctors, because we have 3 different hospitals. So it's hard because you have 3 different locations and trying to make sure everybody's on the same page. So it does take some effort and something that you have to put time into. And that's the same with the short-term trips that we lead. We spend 7 months building the teams for each year for each trip. And so that being intentional and making sure that we are training people appropriately, that everybody's on the same page, that everybody's expectations are where they should be before we even get in the van or get on a plane or go anywhere. Because we don't want to get where we're going and have, wrong expectations and things just kind of fall apart.
Right. Well, that's kind of hard because I would imagine to some degree that team building within the clinic setting, and granted, you have a wonderful team that you're a part of there, and so there's probably not necessarily a lot of turnover that happens, but within building, the dynamic within short-term mission trips, those are a lot of times new faces that are coming in, and not even faces that you have selected for. It's you just get a brand new group of people, and to take 7 months to try to put them together. How complicated is that to try to build a cohesive team of strangers within that amount of time?
Yeah, and you start at the beginning.
Good place to start.
It's a good place to start. So we just, month 1, and we do that, we kind of, it's meet and greet, figure out who we are, and then we, talk about why we're doing missions. And then month 2, we just kind of build each month on, trying to build that community, getting people used to each other. Because we really don't want to be doing that team building exercises or experiences while we're out serving. It doesn't work as well. So wanting everybody to know each other, why we're here, where they are in their faith journey, in terms of the short-term dreams. Because it is interesting. God puts people together for a reason. And it's you don't realize it, but I mean, it is. And then, people feel like they're on an island, and then you put them in these groups, and then they realize, well, God put me with somebody who also has had the same experience for a whatever reason, right?
Yeah.
So, and the teams will grow and build on that. And then when we get back, those little team communities continue to talk. And it's really neat for me to see, because, now with these little square boxes, people talk to each other all the time.
Yep.
And they have a thing called group text, which
that's right.
I mean, you and I are a little older than that. So
that's right.
We used to have to pick up the phone and call people, but now,
right.
They can, if they see something that made them think of the trip, they'll send out a group text. Just as makes people, a little bit of a reminder, which is really neat. So,
well, it's a good point, because I was going to ask you, what some of the hallmarks of what you would consider to be a healthy community or a healthy team, and that connection, just like you said, just understanding why we're all here. I never, so far, I haven't heard you say that we're all here to be the same. Like we're all here for different reasons, and part of that is trying to knit those folks together in a way that honors the reason why God has brought us together. Even in a clinic setting, right? We don't all have the exact same skill sets. We don't have the same abilities. We have different personalities, and yet, when we're all working together and staying connected, we're far more effective, far more efficient, and far more productive too. What would be some of the hallmarks when you look at whether it's in the clinic setting, the vet school setting, or even in the mission setting? What are some of the things that you see on a team or within a community that you say, yeah, this is doing what it's supposed to do? This is a healthy sense of interaction, I guess.
Well, I mean, I think in any situation, if you just pretend you're a fly on the wall and just watch and see how things are going, is it running okay? Are, you know, in the clinic setting, are clients and patients being served appropriately? You know, is everybody happy? Are the patients, you know, getting better? You know, is this running smoothly versus is it chaotic and are things falling apart? Are people crying in the corner? You know, you can tell when things aren't going well in the clinic setting. And then in terms of on the trips, is, you know, we're there for a reason. We're there to share the gospel, and we use veterinary medicine as a sneak attack way of doing that. Are those things happening? Are people talking to people? You know, is the animals being cared for? The clients being talked to? Is, you know, is everything going smoothly? And when everything's going smoothly, it's just working. And then, you know, and like you said, God puts peoples with different gifts together for a reason.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like, we're all different hands and feet, and everybody has different gifts. And the hard part is not to covet somebody else's gift.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
You know, but it's, and that's just, it's part of it. And so it is neat to see how things, when it's working well, to see how it's working well. And when it's not working well, what can we do to make this better? And then, you know, on the trips, we sit down and talk about our highs, our lows, and our God moments every day. Which is neat because everybody has a different perspective of the day. So it's kind of sharing each other's perspectives as to what they saw through the day. Like, I met this person. Well, I met that same person and I had a different conversation with them, you know, and it's just kind of neat to see that kind of interaction too. So all these things to help kind of build that team together while we're there.
And it's hard because I guess when you said it's easy to know when things aren't going wrong. And part of that is as soon as something gets into the wheel, for example, everything else gets thrown off. And you're, you know, as a mission team, if your goal is to be able to share the gospel, the first thing you'll notice is that we're not sharing the gospel because we're focused on this. And as a clinic, as a clinical team working together, our job is to be able to provide for our patients, educate our clients, meet their needs in a positive way. And if those things aren't happening, if there's a conflict somewhere, then that trickles down. And as a team, everything just kind of falls apart. And so having somebody who's watching that, is that part of kind of what you do? Do you just kind of watch when things start to spin, so that way you can catch it before it gets way too far out of control? Or do you get run over by the same bus as everybody else?
Well, nobody's perfect, right?
Right.
I mean, I think, you know, unfortunately, if you're the lead, or, you know, people are always looking at you. So if things are going down, you're the first person to know if it's starting to sink. So I think, you know, and being able to try and catch that net is important. But on, you know, sometimes you don't see stuff like on the trips, if you're, you know, doing something or not even in that, wherever that's happening, is just making sure that is, you just want to make sure that your focus is the same. And again, setting everybody's expectations to be the same. Like in the clinic setting, our job is, like you said, is client education. It is ours is exceptional customer service, and then, you know, excellent patient care. And if those things aren't happening, clients are upset, something's wrong, you know, then there's something we need to do to fix it. And for us, at the end of every day, we do highs, plus and deltas. So highs, things that went well through the day, and then deltas, things we can change to make tomorrow better. Yes. And so we do that at the end of every day, just to kind of, you know, close out the day, make sure everybody goes home on a good note. And then how can we make tomorrow an even better day? So, and that comes from the team. So they're the ones that lead that. I just sit in the back and make sure it happens. So.
That's nice. Well, I've noticed, you know, for us to be effective, whether it's within the clinical setting, within a mission trip, on our faith journey, community is a huge part of that support. And yet it seems like not just for Christians, but within the veterinary profession, there's a tendency for us to try to go it alone. And that builds up some isolation. Why do you think that is? And what are some of the dangers, or even some of the warning signs when people are separating themselves out or are starting to feel isolated from the group?
And I think, well, it's interesting that you asked that. So, you know, as a veterinarian, I feel like in general, unfortunately. We're very prideful. And so we feel like I got this, like I can do this by
Right.
myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
I know.
it is
Was that directed at me, Paige? I
No,
took that personally. Oh, okay.
everyone. I mean, we've all
It's true.
fallen into that pit, I think, at
That's
some
right.
point.
Yeah.
And so I think, in that regard, we sort of isolate ourselves saying that I can do this, I've got this kind of thing. I don't need help. And we kind of put that on ourselves some. I think a little bit with our communities that even with increased communications and cell phones and emails and, all this stuff, people seem to isolate more and more, especially post-COVID, where they just kind of hide in their houses and talk on Zoom.
Right. Yeah.
Or not
exactly.
even, I mean, I just feel like even though we have more connectivity, we are more and more isolated from what is real. And so a lot of people don't have that sense of community. Most people don't even know who their neighbors are. Just going outside and saying hello, or would you like to go over for dinner, or just kind of meeting people and that they're fearful of that. So I think there's a little bit of fear. I think there's a little bit of pride. But all of that kind of causes people to kind of isolate themselves or feel like they are on an island, or whatever issue, problem, whatever they're dealing with, they're by themselves. And so there's a lot of, I think that kind of goes across the board between everything. And so it's important to kind of get out and build a community around yourselves. So.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate that, because like you said, that it's ingrained within each and every one of us to a certain extent. I'd had a conversation with Karen Stauffer about worldviews and about community-centric people groups versus groups that tend to focus a little bit more on independence. And I think within our little corner of the world, it seems to be a lot more rampant. Like, we can't quite wrap our minds around that community perspective from a cultural side, just because that's where we are, I guess. And then you take that and you multiply that out within our profession, where, like you said, if you're the lead, everyone's looking to you. And so there's a weight of, I've got to carry this. And it can be hard sometimes to allow a team to help carry the weight, or allow a team to see where we are weaker or more vulnerable, for fear that it's going to tear us down from the position that we have. And it seems like increasingly we're seeing more and more professionals who are not just isolating, but also the weight of that isolation is becoming a bit overwhelming. And that can be dangerous when you think that you are on that island and there isn't anyone else that can understand. Because truth is, most of us are on our own islands in that same channel. How do you so you said at your clinic you have those pluses and deltas at the end of the day. How do you are there other ways that you help try to maintain that connection to keep people from drifting too far on their own?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and it's hard, but you have to, if we notice it, if we notice that people are starting to kind of drift, we try and talk to them, pull them in or whatever. But it is hard. And some people are innately, their personality is as an introvert also. And I don't know, I was trying to think, are a lot of veterinarians introverts or are they extroverts? And I think in my clinic, of the 15 doctors we have, I think there's a large percentage are more introverts than extroverts. Because I could actually pick out the extroverts, and everybody else, I was like, they don't like come out for function, they don't really do stuff a whole, and so I think they're probably more introverted. And is that a professional thing? I don't know, but that doesn't help either. Like, they're really good. And it's, when I grew up in kind of the amusement park business, and when you clocked in, you were on stage, right? So when we come to the vet office, we're the veterinarian. When we leave, who are we? And so there's a little bit of, that too, I think. So some people just feel a little bit isolated when they're not at the clinic sometimes, perhaps too, but even in their job.
Well, I find that walking two different lines, even as a pastor, leading a church, same thing. You walk in and everybody's eyes are on you. And by the time that you leave, and it's hard to admit this, but like, sometimes I just don't want to see people because I've been seeing people for a long time, and whether it's in the clinic setting, whether it's in the church setting, I do all that coaching. So there's kids, and my wife's a school teacher. So we get to this point where like we're just in people overload. We don't want to do that, and yet that can sometimes. The problem is that a lot of those things can be rather shallow from a community standpoint, right? Because you're up on the stage, so there's not really necessarily a lot of connection with the people that are observing, and it can be a really dangerous thing if you're not intentional about building those really valuable, real vulnerable connections outside, because otherwise you do just kind of build a bubble around yourself for sure. So with let me ask this about the mission trips that you lead. The three that I had mentioned among the Native people groups in North Carolina, Arizona, and Alaska, I would imagine those are primarily community-centric groups. Have you observed things there that you're like, wow, I really wish that we could be more like this, or carry that into the clinic setting or the team setting?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. It is interesting because we go out there and we think that we're, our worldview is very different than theirs. So they are they're very rich in community in terms of that. Like their whole family lives together. They know there's no such thing as aunts and uncles. Everybody's an aunt and uncle. Everybody's a cousin, and so it doesn't matter who's a who or what's a what, but they are so connected to their family. And so they may leave to get work, but they come back. They don't stay away long for that. And so their families are so close, and we don't have that here.
Right.
And I think that in that regard, like their communities are so well built. And each tribe is different. The Yupik live in villages, and it's interesting because they have these tiny villages that are hundreds of miles away from anybody. And the only way to get there is plane or boat. Yeah, that's about it. You can do snow machine, but those can only go so far.
Yeah.
And, they live in these tiny little communities, and you would think, some places you would think that they would know everybody in their village, but some villages they don't. And it just kind of depends on which village worked harder at getting to know each other. And I think it kind of is the same here. Like, how hard are you working to get to know your neighbors? So there can be a lot of isolation there, because it's also cold and nobody wants to go outside. And so you're just kind of, you're just there. But you have to, when there's bad weather and things like that, like you have to work together to survive. And so, each community that we work with is very different, but I think overall in general, they are very rich in terms of their communities, especially with the Navajo, especially the families.
Yeah.
It's amazing to see. And it's very different than their worldview of family is very different than what ours is. And I just feel like they're more rich in what they have than what we have here. So
yeah, there's that unique perspective. And again, when we talked earlier about just a diverse group of people being brought together, it's great to see how God weaves all those differences in, and adds, a richness to that tapestry. And when you go to a place, like to the Navajo, again, you think like you're coming in from a different worldview. You have this perspective, like you're bringing something in, and yet you really need to be looking for what you need to carry out, because there's a lot of great lessons that we could benefit from if only we opened our eyes and paid attention. Well, I really appreciate this conversation about the importance of community and even some of the dangers of isolation. I think I would like to have another conversation with you about maybe some practical steps in how to be intentional about building community. But we may have to wait until another time to talk about that. So if that's okay, if you don't mind, maybe joining me another time, we can talk about how to build a healthy community and what types of steps we can take to ensure that we are adding to and not taking away from that. So, but I really appreciate you joining me today. For everybody listening, if you are feeling alone or isolated, it's good for you to realize and to know you really aren't alone. We're all kind of on the same island. We just can't see each other. That's the problem. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of intentionality to reach out to the people around you, to really build the community that will help us to encourage one another and to thrive in the gifts and talents and calling that we all have been given. So hopefully, as you've been listening to this conversation, hopefully there have been some things that have struck true and that you will benefit from. And as we have these conversations, hopefully together we can learn how to live well at the intersection of two roads crossing.
Thank you for listening to Two Roads Crossing, a podcast production of the Christian Veterinary Mission. If you were blessed by this content, like and subscribe so that you are alerted when new content is released. If you would like more information about CVM, or if you have questions, comments, or topical suggestions, you can find us online at www.cvm.org. Or you can contact us by emailing podcast@cvm.org. God has a plan for the nations, and that plan includes you. We pray that CVM has encouraged you to live out your calling with confidence and competence. So, until next time, may the voice of the shepherd ring loud and clear as you follow him in faith to the intersection of two roads crossing.